Today I'm going to show you how you can safely move dormant fruit trees in the middle of winter. And I'm going to give you a bunch of different tips for planting, how to do this without damaging the tree, and what's the best timing of year and weather to do this. Why do I want to move my fruit trees? Well, I had two that die. One, a yellow jacket nest got developed under there, and I think that's what killed it. And then there's a couple other spots I'm just not that happy with in terms of the sun that it's getting year round. So the trees we're gonna move is this big apple tree. I can tell that it needs more light because look at the way all these limbs are stretching. They're all trying to go this way. I tried to max out as many trees as I could fit in this little area just to experiment and see. And if you're a little bit unsure, is this gonna have enough light? I wouldn't put a fruit tree there. Put something else, put blueberries or berries. Those fruit will do a lot better with less sun. And behind that, I just marked this during the season to show that it was in fact dead. And the way that you can tell if something's dead, a tree should have a nice bend to it. I mean, a tree that's alive, you should really be able to bend it. This I cannot. And when I break it, the wood inside is completely brown. A tree that is alive will have its cambium layer. It's like a little green layer right below the bark. So if you see green and more of a white flesh, then that part of the tree is alive. None of this tree is alive at this point. And then this is where I have another dead tree. This will be gone. And I have these two pears, these pear trees. And what I'm gonna do is just shift the pears into those two spots. And then what that's gonna give me is this whole row is now gone. And with the pear here, it's gonna create this really nice diagonal line. And my trees will only be 3 rows now. So it'll be so much easier to mow and maintain. If I need to move something or have a big truck come through here, it'll just be slightly easier. These are great changes for me to make. The only tools that I'm going to need for this, or you might need for this, is technically just a shovel. It's really all that you need. But if you want to have better transplant success, then I also recommend that you use some sort of inoculant. I've added in good compost that I've made that also has charged biochar in it, so that's going to be full of life. Now the compost, I'm not thinking of it as feeding these plants, I'm thinking of it as an inoculant, so a probiotic. Whenever someone says inoculant, just think probiotics in your gut. It's a very similar system to how our gut microbiome breaks down the nutrients for absorption. And that's kind of what's happening in the soil. The microbes are breaking down nutrients and minerals for absorption through the roots for the tree. If you just want to buy something, I'd recommend mycorrhizae fungi. These are the fungi that develop the communication network between the root system and the other microbes in the soil. So it's incredibly important that that is there. I also put in some kelp meal as in my rock dust and diatomaceous earth. And this is all for minerals and just so there's some micronutrients there for the tree to go get. Any other type of major feeding that I do to my trees, I feed from the top down, and that's because that's how it works in nature. Any tree out in the woods, the nutrients are not being put there by a person, it's happening through water infiltration over time and the microbes breaking down nutrients and minerals and then giving that to the tree. That's a real basic biological nutrient discussion. Now let's get into actually moving these trees. So what we're gonna do is pre-dig this hole. Make it extra wide so that when we fill this back in with this loose soil, those feeder roots, those real small ones are gonna be able to get into that soil and have a place to be so they're not right up against this smooth wall of the hole. They have a little bit more loose soil in the beginning. It'll just help those roots get established better. Our goal here is to keep as many roots alive as possible. I'm gonna put my shovel in and get over the top of it so it's gonna shoot straight down more. And I'm just gonna cut all the way around it, about 1 foot from the edge of the trunk to my shovel. And I'm just gonna continue this all the way around, trying to go as far as possible. Obviously, we're going to cut roots here. There's no way around that. Now I'm gonna go around the whole tree and lift up on it a lot harder. And you should hear a couple roots cracking as you're doing this. So what I'd like to do is when I pull this up, I want as much of this soil to stay with me as I can. I'm gonna get my shovel under here, kind of work it at the same time, lift it up and carry it over to my hole. Well, it didn't work out perfectly like I wanted, but this is great to show you guys. So all these little guys, these are the feeder roots that go out, and they either have little small roots coming off. You can see these are, where we cut these bigger roots. We've basically maxed out the hole. The roots are reaching the edge here. So I kind of want to scrape out a little bit more out of this hole just to make it a bit wider, because this is kind of the thing I was saying earlier, is if the roots are right up against this, that's not the best. Let's get it a little bit more room. It takes a little more effort. Could this work? Yeah, but with fruit trees, you want to give them every possible chance they have to do the best that they can. I want to have a little bit more height because I want the soil just to come up to this and stop. That's where the graft was on the tree when they grafted the rootstock and the fruiting stock. So I don't want the soil to come above this point. We'll just come up to there. So we're gonna add in a little bit of native soil here. Now I'm gonna add in, this is my inoculant. So each hole is gonna get about a shovel full. I'm gonna spread it all over the roots too. Only use about half of it. If you have a friend, this makes it easier because you can work to get it perfectly straight in the hole. So then we'll just start burying the roots. I've just now covered most of the roots. We'll add in the rest of our inoculant. And then when I fertilize these a little bit later in the season, I will do more of the same inoculant from the very top. But this, at least all the root zone now is gonna be covered. Now we're gonna really lightly compress the soil. I'm putting 10% of my body weight just to get a little bit of compaction going. We wanna eliminate the air holes. Okay, so now I'm gonna stand back and look. Needs to come this way a little bit. So you wanna make sure it's centered in the hole, going straight up. Make sure it's centered with the tree and behind it and to the side of it, or however you've oriented your trees. I'm gonna push a bit harder. So that worked out perfectly. So here's a couple more tips. When should you do this? Number one, it must be winter. So after you've gotten a couple freezes, they must be fully dormant. And you wanna make sure that the temperatures are staying lower. Now, sometimes in East Tennessee, we can get December temps in the low 70s. And that's what happened on Christmas, actually. That's when about that time was when I was gonna move these. Because that happened, I was worried, okay, this could be a false spring, and these guys will wake up because they think it's spring because it got so warm. So I decided, let's wait to transplant these just in case. And what will happen actually, if they were to wake up, the buds, these new growth points where they'll send out the different branches and lateral shoots, fruiting spurs, those areas swell up in the spring and then they pump out. So if you see that, do not transplant. And that means it's too late to do this. And that's gonna happen, more in March, depending on where you live. But tonight it's gonna rain about 1/4 inch, it says. So I could hand water these, but I don't think I'm going to, because if we really do get that much rain, then that will be enough to soak this hole. If that doesn't happen, then you need to come in and do a watering that's real slow. So put a hose on it and a slow drip and just let it water for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and that'll help it really get soaked in there. But in winter, your tree won't need as much water either. It hardly needs anything to get through the winter in dormancy. And then of course I need to prune my fruit trees in the winter. I don't want to prune them when it's gonna rain. That's not a good idea. Could have fungal possibilities. Hopefully it'll be dried for a couple days and I'll see rain coming in the future. And what I'll do is I'll prune all my trees, I'll add all my compost and my minerals and all the inoculants, and then allow the rain to help soak that in. So now I've moved the other 4 trees and look how much better this space looks. And now these trees that weren't getting the best light have a chance to perform so much better for the rest of their life.